Shabbat Shalom. So I want to um, begin in a couple of ways. I have not written this out. I'm going to share a few thoughts. If I don't express them perfectly, I depend upon and ask your forgiveness in advance. Number one, I want to just say explicitly that as we give thanks for the return of hostages and we keep Israeli soldiers and the community of Israel in mind, our hearts should be big enough to feel the agony and sadness at what is unfolding in Gaza. It is a tragedy. It is awful. And it will continue to be awful. And our hearts, I think a task of ours that may be easier for us to fulfill than those who live in Israel is for our hearts to expand and to keep those in mind who are suffering so much. We had a bar mitzvah last week. I did not speak about all of my experiences in Israel from the Bima. I spoke about them at a lunch and learn and with the teens at a Friday night dinner and after Shabbat services afterward. And you can find all of that, and I'm not going to review the trip. Except I will say one thing, which is that when you go there and you meet with Israelis, one little story, our bus broke down. We had a cab driver who came and picked us up and took us to our next thing. Got to talking to the cab driver. His name was Yedidia, and he said, and he told us he was in Gaza the day before and two of his friends had been killed. And he was going back to Gaza the next day. And here he was on a day off from the war, like you and I have a day off from work and we go on a trip somewhere. I went to an army base, and one of the things that struck me was there's a parking lot because the people who are in the army don't go to war on a ship or on a plane and travel far away. They get up in their homes and they drive to the front and they park their cars and they go to war. It's intimate. And the suffering in Gaza and the suffering in Israel and the massacre which was perpetrated was not the anonymous explosion of something. It was 1,400 acts of intimate brutality that will take generations to heal. The Parsha, Jennifer, you asked me, right? Why'd she take the Terafim and I gave you a bunch of answers, and the last one I said is because she knew who she was dealing with. Lavan tricked Jacob. By the way, Jacob had it coming, right? The Bible is very clear about that. Midah k'neged midah. Jacob tricked his brother, deceived his brother. Lavan tricked him. Lavan will continue to trick him in many ways. It says Vayiknov, that Rachel stole the idols and that Jacob stole Lavan's heart. And then Lavan comes and finally they get together, and Lavan accuses Jacob of what? Of stealing. Right? You've stolen from me. You stole my daughters from me. You stole everything from me. And I said to you, I think another answer is that Jacob and Rachel knew who they were dealing with. And I'm going to say this, and you can feel free to disagree, okay? But it is, Yossi Klein Halevi writes about this in an article I commend to you called The Lonely People of History. It is something that happens in Jewish history where the things which were done to us are turned against us. Where the Soviet Union described Zionists as Nazis. Right? Take the worst thing which was done to us and accuse us of being that. And Lavan accuses Jacob of stealing. And he himself is the thief. And the word genocide has a meaning. By the way, the word genocide came from Jews. If you want to read about this, read the book East West Street about two theoreticians of international law, both Jewish, Lemberger and Lemkin, I think, are the two. I may have those names wrong. One of them, by the way, was here at Duke and traveled up and down Highway 95, if there was a Highway 95, during World War II, and worked with Biddle, who was the Attorney General, and brought the case at the Nuremberg trials. We gave to the world the word genocide as a particular crime, side meaning killing, and genus, a species. It is the intentional wiping out of a group of people. And there is no question that what took place on October 7th was an attempted genocide that partially succeeded. They indiscriminately attempted to destroy, wipe out, humiliate, torture Jews, and, by the way, Arabs, Bedouins, Thais, and other people got caught up in it. That was intentional. And I need to say this very clearly. There are a lot of deaths which are happening in Gaza, and it is not a genocide. That is not Israel's intent. People have said if Israel wanted to do that, Israel could do that. There are Israeli soldiers who are dying because they refuse to do more and more and more bombing from above, all of which is possible. It is an accusation being made against us when it was something that was done to us. And in a fog of war, I just want to plead. Part of what makes us human beings is our ability to use reason and to make distinctions. And the whole idea of rules of war is an oxymoron in some ways. But there are rules of war. There is a whole field. I will be speaking about it, doing my best on Friday, December 21st or 22nd at the Forest at Duke about just war theory. I commend to you the articles of Moshe Halbertal. This is incredibly difficult. It is something called asymmetrical warfare. And the hospital, the Shifa hospital that you are reading about, is the most difficult case possible because it is the most untouchable target. And it is over not a small thing, but over a huge military target, a military headquarters. And that's done purposefully. I pray we can guard ourselves against these accusations. We can keep our hearts soft. We can hold ourselves to standards that we should be proud of. And we can pray. Pray that this terrible, awful, awful organization, Hamas, comes to an end. It could all be over tomorrow. And until then, that we find our way towards peace and security for all of those who dwell between the river and the sea. And let us say,